This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, December 16th, 2024, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will have Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net joining me for the closing markets. But first, it is my discussion with Ryan Van Roekel of Pivot Bio. So we talk about the microbial nitrogen from Pivot Bio and how it dealt with a very wet start to the growing season, followed up by a very dry close to the growing season.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Ryan Van Roekel at Pivot Bio. We are at Trade Talk 2024. Ryan, what is your role within the Pivot Bio organization, please?
I lead the commercial agronomy group at Pivot Bio, and so that's where we have all our agronomists out in the field working with our sellers and working with our farmers directly and just helping them understand nitrogen and how to best use their products.
And Ryan, I know this year was a year of many challenges for growers, and when we think about especially nitrogen loss, this was really the year that we saw that in a big way. First of all, let's go back to how the season started and then kind of how it ended up and what you saw from the results of Pivot Bio.
Yeah, that's right. The agronomists were busy this year, like they always are. You know, I mean, actually, if you look back at 2023, it was super dry, almost no nitrogen loss. And then it's so wild how we got enough rain to totally fill the tank, and then way too much rain in the spring of 2024, and just had a ton of nitrogen loss. And so that was really showing up late in the year. But of course, late in the year, it also dried out a bunch too. So you kind of got it on both ends in 2024. And it really leaves a lot of people scratching their head as to what to do next year and what they can do to improve. And that's where our Pivot Bio products that can fix nitrogen for the corn, that don't wash away, that's a great way to diversify your nitrogen fertilizer program for next year.
And that microbial nitrogen just being right there on the seed, readily available, how does that mitigate then the nitrogen loss in a season like we saw this year?
Yeah, so our microbes are, they've got some proprietary gene edits that allow them to keep fixing nitrogen no matter what, and they live and grow on the corn roots, just like you said. So every day on the corn root, they're fixing a little bit of ammonia, and that doesn't wash away, and it's spoon-fed right there to the corn crop. So when the farmers apply our products at planting, either liquid in furrow or on a seed treatment, those microbes colonize the roots and they live and grow and fix nitrogen right along with the corn.
So in terms of results this year, was Pivot Bio pleased with how the season went in terms of showing the efficacy of the product?
Yeah, for sure. This year, there was a lot of fields that needed more nitrogen, and so saw some really nice yield bumps by using our product. A lot of folks were also able to successfully replace a portion of their nitrogen. So generally, we would recommend you cut a little bit of that nitrogen out and use our products instead, get the same or better yield. That's a great way to get a really consistent ROI. And so a great way to look up some of these results is we've got a new performance website. It's called pivotsprovenit.com, and you can click on state of Iowa or any other state, and we've got our local yield results up there.
So Ryan, for a farmer that's maybe never used Pivot Bio before or any of its products, what are the questions they have for you, and then what is the, barrier that you need to break down to show how Pivot Bio can help them?
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions are just like, what is this and what does it do? You know, it's a wild thing, using a biological and something new that a lot of folks haven't used before. But on the flip side, I think a lot of farmers know that anhydrous, especially applied in the fall, well ahead of when the corn needs it in the summer, is maybe not the best way to do your nitrogen fertilizer either. It's cheap and easy, but not the best. And so I'd encourage folks, if they're interested in improving their nitrogen fertility, reach out, find a local Pivot Bio person that can talk to them just like we're doing and explain it to them and figure out how it's going to fit and work on their farm.
And I would imagine for any grower that's maybe just not, familiar with the product, the easiest way to get them on board is to show that data backing up, like you talked about, the results from a season like this.
Yeah, that's right. Something new is always a big leap of faith, and so I'll admit we haven't done a great job of telling our story in the past, and we're making great gains here with the website, and all of our local sales folks are well equipped to have that discussion and help talk folks through it too.
Ryan Van Roekel with Pivot Bio, my guest here today. Ryan, is there anything else you'd like to let our Iowa growers know about when it comes to Pivot Bio and what you're working on?
Well, I'd say just stay tuned for us. We're always working on new things and new products, and we got a little bit of fall nitrogen yet to go. And so if you still got nitrogen you're planning to put on, I'd encourage you to reach out to somebody at Pivot Bio and see if we can't fit into that program. You cut back a little bit on that fall, and then maybe it won't wash away next spring, and you can have the same or better yields by using our Pivot Bio products.
Ryan, thanks so much for the time. Very insightful conversation. Appreciate it, and have a great rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you to Ryan Van Roekel of Pivot Bio for joining Ag Matters PM. We will have the closing markets coming up with Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. But first, it's time for a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. You're watching Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You're watching Ag Matters PM, and it's time for our closing markets with Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Robin, what was the trade like in the grains today?
Oh, we had mixed trade in the grains. Corn was the leader, showed the strength. Soybeans, weakness. Wheat kind of trying to find its way in between. Now, corn seems to be gaining a little more interest by the trade. We did see a huge increase, fund buying on the cattle or commitment to traders report, and that's carrying through. I think there seems to be a little bit of a change in attitude in that market, and so that's maybe going to carry through as we move through the rest of this year. Although going into the holiday trading period, sometimes we see some weird things happen. But we did have corn export inspections today that were good, within the range, 1.183 million metric ton. They looked for 1.1 to 1.9, so it's holding in there well, and that's a good volume for inspections, and that's what's being shipped out. It's not sales; it's what's being shipped out. Soybeans at 1.859 million metric ton, in the range as well. They were looking for 1.5 to 2.2. Wheat was at 198,880 metric ton. Below the expectations, the low end of the expectations was 275 or 275,000 metric tons. So that's why wheat was just kind of, I think, hanging in there, struggling a little. But the thing on that put the pressure on the soybeans, Argentina plantings at 65% complete. And what is growing in Argentina is rated at 65% good to excellent. So that's doing well. Brazilian soybeans are basically planted. We're looking at potentially, a larger crop coming on there. Now that's in the bigger picture, but that is translating into the market right now. NOPA crush today was now 193.185 million bushels. The estimate was 196.7, so that put maybe a little bit of more negativity into that market that we're looking at the expectations there being a little bit higher than what actually came in. A little disappointing to the trade. Now that is up from last year, but still, the expectations are what the trade really looks at. So that seemed to put a little more pressure on the market as we moved in closer to the close. Soy oil stocks were at 1.084 billion bushels. They estimated that to be a little bit higher, and that's down from last year. So when we looked at overall in this grain market, it seemed like the market was trying to find itself starting off the week, and it really didn't have a whole lot of real news underneath to give it a solid market direction.
Over in the livestock markets, what was the trade like for cattle and hogs today on Monday?
Well, they were under pressure. We had a strong market last week with cattle. We had higher cash prices, but they came under pressure today. Was a little bit extra premium into that market relative to cash last week. They took that out of there. A little bit of concern moving through this week. Now, packers look to be short bought, but they may not. They're loath to really pay much higher than this. because they are at lofty levels. Now, box beef is going to be key. Will box beef stay stronger this week, that they need to step up and buy cattle? And if they are going to, they're going to have to pay a higher price. So the setback today was, I think, taking away some of the premium in the live cattle. Feeder cattle followed suit, but feeder cattle have been narrowing that wide spread that had developed earlier. So that's why we've seen live cattle moving higher and holding, while feeder cattle have been moving in a sideways pattern. Now, looking at January feeder cattle by itself, we're at technical support, and really looking at that contract, we could have possibly established a double top technically in that market. So the next 2 days here is going to be critical, both technical and fundamental in that cattle market. We have a cattle on feed report coming on Friday. That's too early for them to really be positioning ahead for that. Hogs, the February contract tried to push higher. That's front month contract right now, but it ran out of buyers. Interest dried up. Markets fell back. That market might be developing a wide sideways trading pattern that could hold through the end of this month. Now, the National Daily Direct Hog Report was up $1.38, which was surprising because a lot of times on Monday, packers aren't that aggressive in that market. But I think they're looking ahead and want to procure the hogs they need early rather than later because of this disruption they'll see as far as the actual business the following 2 weeks. Now, the cutouts on midday were up 247, but a combination of both of that should provide some support. But the market at this point in time seems to be a little more technically driven, and the concern over demand as we move through the end of the year.
Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net, my guest for closing markets here on Monday. Robin, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
They can call me directly at 877-256-3253 or go to our website, agmarket.net. There's an 844 number. Feel free to call that. Somebody will pick up the phone and be glad to help you.
Thanks so much for the time here today. We always appreciate it, and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you, and you as well.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for our closing markets. Let's take a look now at how the numbers closed today. And you can find the market numbers anytime under the markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com.
March corn closes up 3 cents at $4.45 even. January soybeans down 6 1/4 at $9.82 even. January soybean meal up 70 cents at $286.90. January soybean oil down 89 cents at $41.72. Chicago wheat down 2 1/4 at $5.50 even. Minneapolis wheat unchanged at $5.98 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat up 2 1/4 at $5.59 1/4. March oats down 3/4 cent at $3.68 even. On the Merc, February live cattle down $2.05 at $189.97. January feeder cattle down $2.10 at $255.55. February lean hogs down $2.05 at $83.55. February pork cutout down 75 cents at $92.90. Class 3 milk up 31 cents at $20.30.
That wraps up our closing markets for today, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notification icon as well. Also, you can follow us on social media at Facebook, X, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Also, don't forget our morning, midday, and closing market podcast, along with our daily Iowa Ag Matters podcast. You can find those wherever you find your favorite podcast at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.